Well, hello, D. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Hey, I really appreciate you taking time just to take a few minutes. As you know, from time to time, people they're interested in coaching, but it's really hard for me to describe to them what we do and how we do it because it can really vary from customer to
Yeah.
customer quite a bit. So you were kind enough to volunteer to let me ask you some questions about your
Sure.
experience and the results that you've gotten. So why don't we start there? Just tell everyone who you are, what you do, and then we can jump in a little bit.
Thank you. My name is Dee Wise. My company is Wise Computer Consulting. This year, we've been in business for 20 years. We're the IT department for small business. That business typically anywhere from say 10 to 15 users to 50 to 70 users. 50 to 70 users, a large company. Um, we're on their org chart, meaning that they may have an attorney, a CPA, insurance person, and other vendors, but we're part of that. We're the IT department. We help them maintain their secrets and maintain their infrastructure so that their business can be productive and efficient in 2021 going forward.
Yeah, wow, that's a mouthful. That's a lot for one company to do. So let's talk a little bit about, we've been working together a little over 2 years now, just past 2 years. And let's talk a little bit about where your business was when we got started. And then we'll talk a little bit about where it is now.
Whenever I got started, we were pretty much around half a million in gross revenue and had been that way for the last 10 years or so. And I was I was kind of everything. I was the main technician. I was the main account manager. I was the most highly skilled person on the team, and I was also the bottleneck. I could not possibly get all these things done, and it was maybe 60 to 70-hour weeks where many of the high value things that I needed to do did not get done. I was doing things that other people did. And so my CPA knew that I needed someone. He tried to help me, but being a business owner, we can be quite stubborn. So he just suggested somebody, and he had met you, Mike, and he had suggested a business coach. And we had gotten connected, and something that you could do and was part of your job was to push me and also to advise me. And you had a layer of information that a CPA didn't have. A CPA would know, the financials of something and the intricacies of the balance sheets and that type of thing, and know different businesses. But as far as being embedded in a business and running one and growing one, that's something a CPA typically is not doing. And that's something that I discovered in you as a business coach, that you had been embedded and run a business and grew that business. So there was another level of trust that I gained. And as a conservative business owners, which a lot of them are, they can't be risky and risk running the business off the cliff. So that's some of the stubbornness, is just protection. I could trust that the advice you gave me was sound. You've been down the corner, you've been over the mountain, you know what's around the bend, and there's some things as a business I did very well, and there's some other things that I wasn't doing so well. And if I was to adopt some common business practices, then I could do a lot better. And that's something that you could bring in coaching, could bring to me. Common business practices I can trust, is intimate to my organization. And you could, it's not just a webinar that I'm looking or a YouTube video that I'm watching that doesn't know my business.
That's right.
It is someone that's asking me questions and then giving me answers based on my answers.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of those things are things that we come up with together. I'm not, it's not always my answers, right?
Right.
So, one of the things I pull out of that really is you in the beginning, you're the owner operator, and you were missing out on the CEO role in your company. And I remember our conversation right as that light bulb started to go on, because you didn't necessarily know what the CEO role was because you were just doing it as needed. But once you started stepping into that role, it really started creating some neat opportunities because you started seeing things at a different level. So let's just talk a little bit about, that's where you were when we started working together. Let's talk a little bit about now. Where do you spend more of your time now? what's happened to your sales and profit over the last couple of years. And then we can talk about some other major changes that you've made as well, if you don't mind.
I mean, one thing we've talked about was that, one of the big changes for me was when I fired myself, basically fired myself from that role as head technician. I'm making the burgers just as quick as anybody else, so to speak. And, that my role was not just to be a cog in it. It was just to make sure that those cogs were there and they're well oiled and the machine's running. I shouldn't be in the machine. I should be maintaining, operating, upgrading that machine, which is my business. And that was that realization when I told everybody, hey, I'm firing myself, which means that means you guys are going to have to do it. Oh, what does that mean? Well, I'm going to help you. I'm really here. I'm going to coach you through the process of replacing me, which means that we can do more, go more places, and we can make clones of myself instead of me being the bottleneck.
Yeah.
And people waiting on me. And that was something, that was that realization that I'd come to that really kind of changed it and allowed me to focus on my infrastructure, my time, and to not feel guilty of that. I mean, as a business owner, a lot of times what you do is you feel guilty if you're not working in the business just as hard as everyone else. Well, I am. I'm just working on it, not in it.
Yeah.
That was
Boy, that's huge. You and I talked about that a while back.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I forget about that, but that's one of the biggest things is business owners feel guilty if they're not out there front line,
right,
pulling their weight, and they do it at the expense of doing things that are more important. And what I've seen you do is you've taken that time that you used to spend out in the field and you've now put time on your calendar with all of your key people where there's a time and a place every week where you're teaching them, growing them, teaching them accountability, and teaching them really everything that you know. And one of the concerns that business owners sometimes have when you say fire myself, they say, yeah, right, like I can really do that. But when you started to do that, it wasn't one day, but when you started to do that, did you find that you had to hire a whole bunch more people? Or did you find that when you stepped out, you had more time available to bring other people up and it just all sort of worked out?
I mean, one of the things I found, if you're the bottleneck and people are waiting on you, they're waiting on you. They have time to do things. So if you empower them to do those things, that you're the bottleneck. One of the things I did all the estimating. That was one of the things I turned over, and each computer system, network diagram, whatever, would take a significant amount of my time. It may take an hour from A to Z just to spec out a computer and quote it tailored to that customer.
Right.
By showing somebody, by taking an hour or two to show someone how to do that, then I could offload that.
Right.
And as long as I'm monitoring that progress, of that computer purchase, then that gave me more hours in the day. And then I'm less of the bottleneck in getting an estimate out.
Yeah, that's really key. Yeah, I saw the same thing happen with you is what you really had a challenge with was you were the bottleneck. And that's the case with a lot of business owners, people waiting and email, text, phone calls, they're waiting. And just by freeing them up to where they have a specific time and a place where they can get their questions answered and get training, everything's sped up. So when you did that, what happened to your sales and profit along the way? When you went from the way that you were doing business to the way you're doing business now, what have been the results? Just ballpark.
Well, one thing that got behind too is the billing. That was a high value activity. I mean, I get paid on the hours that we work. I mean, it's not just selling that computer and estimating that computer. It is the resources, customer uses our resources. We charge for that. And when I can't get that billing timely, the customers are getting smacked with this bill 3 months later. By making the bill timely, they're expecting that bill for all of that work done. And then the cash flow goes up. So our cash flow went up.
Yep.
That was one result of that. And then two, I think my confidence changes. And that's important as a leader, that as I understand, and I've gone to a bunch of leader seminars and you hear a bunch of things, but the rubber meets the road is where we have a specific conversation about that. And instead of watching 5 hours of a webinar where they talk about leader, we have one conversation that sticks with me. You're carrying the big stick, right? You're the owner. You don't have to pretend to be the owner. You are the owner. Just be the owner. And you're the leader and people looking towards you to do that. You don't need to feel guilty. It's your business.
That's right. That's right. And then have you seen what's happened to the growth of your business over that time?
We've been able to, one of the things that was lacking is the painter's house always needs painting. We've been able to paint our house. We've been able to increase our IT infrastructure. We've been able to add systems. We've been able to grow our infrastructure and increase our profit. And of course, this is, 2021, last year was COVID. We were able to weather that storm where all these customers are coming at us wanting to work remotely. We were able to deploy that, do that, grow the business, add to it based on the infrastructure we had already put in, and allowing me, instead of me down in the engine room trying to pump more, I'm out steering the ship, which is what I needed to do. And I can kind of steer it away from the rocks a lot easier. And, it also gives my team confidence. So they're more efficient, they're more productive, they're more doing the things that need to be done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the really cool thing. And, the neat thing is, it is possible to double or nearly double the size of your business over a period of time without decreasing profit. In fact, profit should go up, and you can make yourself have a better business along the way. So
and it's been more fun. One of the things, you get into this and you start making this, or you get into IT or something like that. And if you're lucky, you have a job you like. So sometimes as it grows, you don't like the job as much. It gets tough when you're doing that 60 to 70 hours. And then when you can change it and you have another challenge, now there's another challenge. You're working on your business instead of working on a customer system. It's your system. It can bring the fun back into it too, which is a motivating factor for me.
Yeah, I've seen a real big difference there. Just your level of excitement and motivation over the last year. Through COVID, this transformation took place, which is really cool. Well, if there's anyone who's thinking about, hiring me as a business coach, are there any other benefits or anything that you'd want to share with them that's just been part of your experience?
I mean, the thing is that I don't have a lot of peers to talk to, much less peers that are intimate into my business. Okay.
Right.
That know and can advise and can push, because that's an important thing too. People can tell you what you want to hear, but when you're trying to get something done, you're trying to get something done. And it's like, if we agree on this goal, being pushed towards that goal is part of a coach's job, right?
Right.
It's a coach, the stereotype is the coach is yelling on the sidewalk lines at their players. Not that you're yelling at them, but you're kind of like, all right, let's go back to what you want. Let's go back to this little checklist here that we need to work on. This does seem most important. Do you not agree that we need to move forward with that? There can be clarity in that, because as a business owner, a lot of times you're really good at something. That's the business you're in. The other things you may think you're good at because you're good at the one thing, but you may not. You need to realize that you're not good at some of these other things. And if you can find somebody, I always say, it's not what you know, but who you know, right?
Yeah.
That's another thing. How do I grow my business? I had to find the who to tell me what to do.
Yeah. I really appreciate that. It's really a pleasure working with you. You've just done a phenomenal job learning, growing, and implementing. And that makes my job more fun. So really happy to see the progress you've made, and look forward to a whole lot more progress as things move forward. I think you're just getting started, really. Now that we've got this infrastructure in place, you get to decide what size and type of company you have. And that's pretty exciting to see.
It's been hard, fun, but fruitful. And that's really, versus being hard and just like mired in something. So it's good. I look forward to continuing.
Awesome. Well, again, I appreciate your time, and we'll catch up with you soon.